The flames roared into the night sky as I watched my life's work turn to ash. My beautiful cabin resort, built by my grandfather's hands and expanded with my own sweat and tears, was being devoured by angry fire. "Oh my God, Russell. Your cabins." Olivia screamed through my phone. "I can see Brenda's purple SUV driving away." My heart sank as I raced toward Pine Ridge Resort. By the time I arrived, 3 cabins were already gone. Firefighters battled the blaze, but the wind carried sparks from building to building. All I could do was watch helplessly as 12 cabins, my office and 30 years of family history disappeared into smoke. "This is definitely arson," the fire chief told me later, pointing to places where gasoline had been poured. "Someone wanted these cabins destroyed." I knew exactly who that someone was. Brenda Wilson, the power-hungry president of the neighboring homeowners association, whose offer to buy my land I had firmly rejected just yesterday. What Brenda didn't know was that her act of revenge had just awakened a fight she never expected. Because while she saw me as just a simple resort owner, I had another job that was about to become her worst nightmare. It started on a sunny Tuesday. I was checking in a family from Chicago when a flashy purple SUV pulled into the gravel parking lot of Pine Ridge Resort. A woman stepped out wearing enough jewelry to open a small shop. Her bright floral dress hurt my eyes in the morning sun. "Mr. Thompson," she called out, her voice sweet but her eyes cold. "I'm Brenda Wilson, president of Riverside Estates Homeowners Association." Behind her followed a nervous-looking man clutching a tablet. "This is Theodore," she said, not bothering with his last name. I invited them to the resort's small cafe. Brenda didn't waste time. "Mr. Thompson, may I call you Russell? I'll get right to the point. Riverside Estates wishes to purchase your property." She named a price double what my land was worth. "What for?" I asked, sipping my coffee. "A community recreation center," she replied. "Swimming pools, tennis courts, a meeting hall. Our residents need proper amenities." But as she spoke, Theodore accidentally dropped some papers. I caught sight of drawings, not of a community center, but of a massive private mansion with a boat dock on my lakefront. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Wilson, but Pine Ridge isn't for sale," I said. "My grandfather built these cabins. I promised him I'd keep this place in the family." Her smile vanished instantly. "Perhaps you don't understand your situation. Riverside Estates now owns all the land surrounding your property. We can make things very difficult for you." "Is that a threat?" I asked. She stood up, her jewelry jingling. "It's simply a fact. Smart business people know when to take a good offer." Her eyes narrowed. "Those who refuse often regret it deeply." As they drove away, I had no idea how far Brenda would go to get what she wanted. The next morning, I found official-looking signs posted at my resort entrance. "Danger, health hazard, unsafe water supply." Guests arriving took one look and turned around. When I tore down the signs, new ones appeared the next day. Then the fake violations began arriving, notices claiming I owed fines to Riverside Estates HOA for unapproved structures, excessive noise, and unauthorized tree height. The fact that my property wasn't even part of their HOA didn't matter to Brenda. That same week, I received an email from my boss at Oakwood County Investment Fund, where I worked as a senior financial advisor. "Russell, the board has assigned you to review the financial records of 3 local HOAs before approving their next funding cycle. Files attached." One of those HOAs was Riverside Estates. As I examined their records, my blood ran cold. Brenda had been stealing money, over $200,000 in fake landscaping projects, non-existent security services, and consulting fees paid to companies that traced back to her family members. The irony wasn't lost on me. As the investment fund's advisor, I would decide whether to approve Riverside Estates' budget for the next 3 years. I kept this information to myself, gathering evidence while watching Brenda's harassment campaign grow worse by the day. My neighbor Olivia, who lived in Riverside Estates, brought more disturbing news. "Russell, I was at the HOA meeting last night," she said, her voice low even though we were alone on my porch. "Brenda is out to get you. She told everyone she would make that stubborn resort owner cry, and force him to sell at any price. She's planning something terrible. She's also stealing from the HOA," I told Olivia, showing her the financial records. "Look at these payments, $30,000 for pool repairs that never happened, $25,000 for security cameras no one has ever seen." Olivia wasn't surprised. "That explains why our fees keep going up. Russell, be careful. Brenda has friends everywhere, at the bank, in the county office, even in the sheriff's department." The next day, All roads to Pine Ridge Resort were suddenly blocked by construction equipment. Emergency road repairs, the workers said, showing permits with rushed approval signatures. Guests couldn't reach us. Deliveries couldn't get through. Then my online reviews were flooded with fake complaints about unsafe conditions and health code violations. Business dried up completely. Desperate, I drove to the Riverside Estates HOA office to confront Brenda. The building was ridiculously fancy with white columns and marble floors, all paid for by homeowner fees. Brenda sat behind a huge desk, pretending to be surprised by my visit. "Mr. Thompson, have you reconsidered our generous offer?" I placed county maps on her desk. "These official maps clearly show that Pine Ridge Resort is outside your HOA boundaries. Your notices, fines, and road blockades are illegal harassment." She barely glanced at the documents. "These maps must be outdated. Our board has voted to incorporate your property into our jurisdiction." "You can't do that without my consent," I argued. Her face twisted with anger. "You have no idea what I can do. People who stand in my way don't last long in Beaver Creek. This is your final chance to sell voluntarily." As I left, Theodore gave me a strange look, part fear, part apology. I later learned why. The next afternoon, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. "Is this Russell Thompson?" a young woman asked quietly. "This is Haley Wilson, Brenda's daughter. We need to meet somewhere private." We met at a coffee shop 20 miles away. Haley looked nothing like her mother. Simple clothes, no makeup, honest eyes. "My mother isn't building any community center," she said, sliding a folder across the table. "These are the real plans. She wants your land for her private mansion. The HOA is paying for it, but the property will be in her name only." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. Haley looked down. "Because she's done this before. 3 times. She destroyed a family's restaurant last year by having health inspectors shut them down with fake violations until they sold at half price. Before that, it was an elderly couple's home." As I drove back to Pine Ridge, I found Brenda and Theodore walking around my property, measuring and taking photos as if they already owned it. "This is private property," I called out. "You need to leave." Brenda turned to me, her jewelry catching the sunlight. "Your days here are numbered, Thompson. Smart people know when they're beaten." When I stood my ground, she stepped closer. "You have no idea what I'm capable of," she hissed, then threw her water bottle in my face before driving away. Later that day, I found a payment record in the HOA finances that chilled me to the bone. $15,000 to Specialized Demolition Services, with a note simply reading, "PR cleanup." PR, Pine Ridge. I called Deputy Morrison, one of the few honest law enforcement officers in town, but he was out on a call. I tried to reach my resort, but all roads were mysteriously under construction again, forcing me to take a long detour. By the time I got close enough to see Pine Ridge, black smoke was already rising against the blue sky. The fire destroyed everything. 12 cabins, the main lodge, all guest records, everything gone in a single afternoon. As I stood in the smoking ruins, Brenda's purple SUV drove slowly past. She didn't stop, didn't offer help. She just smiled. The next day, my bank accounts were frozen due to suspicious activity. The bank manager, Brenda's golf partner, delivered the news with a barely hidden smirk. 3 days after the fire, a real estate agent brought me Brenda's new offer, 50% below market value for my now empty land, with a 48-hour deadline to accept. Standing in the ashes of my grandfather's original cabin, I found a broken picture frame. As I picked it up, the frame crumbled, cutting my hand. Blood dripped onto the charred ground as I stared at the photo of my grandfather and me building the first cabin together. Then Haley called again, her voice shaking. "Russell, Mom hired some men to burn what's left tonight. She thinks it will finally force you to sell." I was too late to save the last standing structure. But as I watched the flames consume my grandfather's original cabin, something changed inside me. I had reached rock bottom. I had nothing left to lose. It was time to use everything I knew about Brenda Wilson and her crimes. The next morning, I walked into William Prescott's office at Oakwood County Investment Fund. I looked terrible, clothes smelling of smoke, a bandage on my cut hand, dark circles under my eyes from sleeping in my truck. "Russell, what happened to you?" William asked, genuinely concerned. I placed a flash drive on his desk. "This contains evidence of systematic fraud at Riverside Estates HOA. Their president, Brenda Wilson, has stolen over $400,000 from homeowners. She's also responsible for burning down my resort." William's expression grew serious. "You should have disclosed your conflict of interest immediately." I know, sir. I wanted solid proof first. I was afraid no one would believe me without it. After reviewing the files, William made a decision that changed everything. I'm authorizing a full forensic audit of Riverside Estates HOA. Their funding is frozen effective immediately. And Russell, we're going to find proof of that arson. For the first time in days, I felt hope returning. Working with forensic accountants, we traced every dollar Brenda had stolen. Deputy Morrison obtained search warrants for her devices based on the financial evidence. We found something you should see, he told me later, showing me recovered text messages between Brenda and the men she'd hired to set the fires. This is enough for arrest warrants. That evening, Brenda confronted me in my hotel parking lot. Gone was the confident HOA president. This woman looked desperate. This ridiculous investigation, I know you're behind it, she hissed. Name your price to make it go away. I recorded our conversation on my phone. There is no price, Brenda. You burned my family's legacy to the ground. Justice isn't for sale. Her face twisted with rage. You'll regret this. I still have friends in this town. But she was wrong. As news of her crimes spread, her so-called friends quickly distanced themselves. The special hearing at Town Hall drew the largest crowd Beaver Creek had ever seen. Every seat was filled with people standing along the walls. William Prescott opened the proceedings. Oakwood County Investment Fund has uncovered serious financial irregularities in Riverside Estates HOA accounts. He then introduced me as the senior financial advisor who had conducted the investigation. Brenda's face showed pure shock as she finally realized who I really was. For the past month, I've documented systematic fraud amounting to over $400,000 in misappropriated funds, I explained, showing slides of fake companies and diverted payments. Brenda jumped up. This is a conflict of interest. Thompson has a personal vendetta against me. The panel chairman silenced her. The financial evidence stands on its own merit, Ms. Wilson. Deputy Morrison presented security footage showing Brenda's SUV at my property right before the fires. Theodore, finally breaking his silence, played a recording of Brenda ordering him to make those cabins disappear. But the most damning evidence came last. Video from hidden security cameras I'd installed after the first harassment began, showing Brenda herself directing men where to pour gasoline around my cabins. Her voice was crystal clear, burn it all down. I want Thompson begging to sell. The room fell silent. When the panel returned from their deliberation, their decision was unanimous. Riverside Estates HOA funding was permanently revoked, all financial records would be turned over to the district attorney, and Brenda Wilson was arrested on the spot for embezzlement, conspiracy, and arson. As officers led her away in handcuffs, our eyes met. All her arrogance was gone, replaced by cold hatred, and finally fear. 6 months later, I stood on the newly rebuilt deck of Pine Ridge Resort's main lodge. Where 12 cabins once stood, 20 luxury cabins were taking shape, along with a community nature center named after my grandfather. Brenda had been sentenced to 5 years in federal prison, plus restitution of $700,000 to the HOA and additional damages to me for destroying Pine Ridge. The insurance settlement, compensation from Brenda's seized assets, and a business recovery grant gave me enough capital to rebuild better than before. What I never expected was how the community would rally around Pine Ridge's rebirth. Former Riverside Estates residents, freed from Brenda's tyranny, volunteered weekends to help rebuild. Local businesses donated materials and services. Even Theodore, doing community service as part of his plea deal, helped replant trees and flowers. I should have stood up to her years ago, he confessed one day. Haley visited often, bringing homemade cookies for the workers. She was starting college in Nashville with a scholarship I had quietly arranged for her. You didn't have to do that, she said when she found out. After what my mother did. We don't inherit our parents' sins, I told her. You made good choices when it mattered most. On opening weekend, as Pine Ridge welcomed its first guest since the fire, Haley brought me a small metal box they'd found buried where my grandfather's original cabin stood. Inside was his pocket watch and a letter addressed to me written years before. Russell, it began, if you're reading this, you're facing tough times. Remember what I always said, you never truly lose what matters most. Buildings burn, things break, money disappears. But character, honesty, determination, these can't be destroyed. Whatever brought you to this letter, know that I believed in you from the day you were born. Build something that lasts, son. That night, after everyone had gone, I sat alone on the new deck watching the moonlight on Beaver Lake. From there, I could see the new Riverside Community Association building. The residents had voted for completely transparent management with term limits. Lessons learned the hard way. A shooting star crossed the night sky. I made a wish, not for success or money, but for wisdom to use this second chance well. My grandfather built Pine Ridge as a place for people to connect with nature and each other. Brenda saw it only as property to be taken. In trying to destroy what I valued most, she had accidentally created the chance for something better to emerge. The new Pine Ridge would not only honor my grandfather's vision but expand it. A retreat for relaxation, a center for learning, a true part of the community. From the ashes of destruction, something stronger had risen. Proving that sometimes when someone burns what you built because you dared to say no, life gives you unexpected ways to rebuild better than before.